Today we're looking at states Americans move to and instantly regret. You know the feeling. You unpack your boxes, you look around, you think, wow, I've made a huge mistake. Maybe it's the heat, the taxes, the hurricanes, the bugs, or the fact that your utility bill now costs more than your car payment. These are states where newcomers go from excited to exhausted faster than a Florida storm cloud. So, buckle up. Let's jump into the states Americans regret moving to, where your dream goes sideways and the moving truck never stays parked for long. Number 10. Arizona. Arizona is a classic example of a place that looks incredible in postcards and widely misleading in real estate ads. You move here expecting endless sunsets and affordable desert living. What you get is a state that spends half the year pretending it's the surface of Mercury. In Phoenix, the summer isn't a season, it's a threat. Air conditioners work harder than most politicians. Utility bills look like car payments, and stepping outside after June feels like sticking your head in a toaster. During the peak summer months of June, July, and August, the average temperature in Phoenix can reach 106 to 108 degrees. That's what it stays around sometimes. Temperatures often exceed 110 and have been observed to go above 125 degrees Fahrenheit. The state's all-time record high is 128 degrees Fahrenheit, about 50 degrees Celsius, and that was at Lake Havasu City in Arizona. Then there's the water issue. The state is basically rationing the stuff like it's a rare mineral. New residents quickly learn that the words Colorado River are spoken with the same dread as when your doctor says, "We found something concerning on your X-ray." Add in rapid growth, rising home prices, and traffic situations that suggest the entire state learned to drive from YouTube tutorials, and you've got regret by month 3. One resident said, "I moved to Phoenix in '97 from Michigan, and it wasn't as crowded at the time. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment in Tempe for $450 a month. I soon moved to Phoenix, a 2-bedroom condo with $650 a month. Now, the rent there is $1,335 a month. I eventually moved out of Arizona as I couldn't stand the hot summers any longer, and I don't miss it." A study showed that 9.8% of new residents regret moving to Arizona. Number 9. Alaska. Alaska attracts a certain type of dreamer, the "I want to live off the land" type, and that sticks with people right up until they actually meet the land, and the land wins. The scenery is stunning, but so is the amount of darkness you live in for months. Most new residents hit their first 300 p.m. sunset and suddenly start Googling cheap flights anywhere warm. I'll give you an idea of how cold it is there. The coldest month in Alaska is January, and in Anchorage, the average temperature in January is 24 degrees Fahrenheit. In Juneau, it's 33 degrees. That's kind of balmy compared to Anchorage. But then you look at Fairbanks, where their average is 3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the type of temperature where your tires freeze to the cement out in front of your house, and you can't drive anywhere till you chip out your tires. You learn how to deal with things like that. But newcomers, they run into stuff that they never expected. The cost of living is another cold slap. Groceries require a second mortgage, electricity costs more than a college education, and shipping a package can feel more like negotiating international trade. Unless you're an outdoorsman or one of the 5 people on the planet that enjoy being stalked by a moose, boredom becomes a constant companion in Alaska. One resident confesses, "The first winter I thought I had seasonal depression. By the third winter, I realized Alaska has seasonal depression." 11.2% of new residents regret moving to Alaska. Number 8. Florida. People move to Florida expecting beaches, palm trees, and Jimmy Buffett-tier relaxation. What they get is humidity you could drink, hurricanes that rearrange the neighborhood, and bugs large enough to qualify for voting rights. Summer here feels like nature trying to slow cook you, and your car interior turns into a crime scene every time you forget to put that sunscreen on your windshield. Florida's insurance crisis is its own horror movie. Home insurance rates have climbed so high, paying your premiums actually feels more like paying a loan shark. Add in traffic, exploding housing costs, and of course the endless parade of Florida man headlines that make newcomers question what dimension they move to. Just recently in a video I did, I found an article about some guy in Florida was breaking into people's homes and licking their feet while they were sleeping. Yeah, a guy woke up, looked at the end of his bed, and some dude had his toe in his mouth. Now, I know that's just one weird dude doing weird stuff, and weird stuff happens all the time, but I would pack up and move if that happened once. If that happened in my neighborhood, I'd seriously consider moving out of the state. One retired resident said, "I moved here for early retirement. Now I spend half my income on insurance and the other half on air conditioning. Please send help." 11.7% of new Florida residents regret moving there. Number 7. Oregon. Oregon was once the hipster paradise. Mountains, coastline, craft, everything. Then newcomers discovered the fine print. Rain, taxes, housing prices, and more rain. Seriously, it drizzles here so much locals don't carry umbrellas. They just accept the dampness as part of life. Seasonal depression is practically a state mascot. Honestly, a lot of people here are on antidepressants. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people that have other problems, but I'm sure there's a good share of those people are suffering from seasonal depression. It wears on you. It takes a while to get used to. It really does. If you're new here, I live in Oregon, just outside of Portland. When I lived in Southern California, we'd have more tropical rain where it really rained hard. But Oregon, especially on the west side, it's constant. It's just gray drizzle and, rain every once in a while. But the drizzle is always there. The gray clouds are always there from like early October to about late April. Portland itself has become the poster child for unmet expectations. High taxes, rising crime, homeless, expensive housing, and traffic levels that resemble a simulation of misery have driven many new residents to consider moving again. Even smaller towns aren't immune. The cost of living has crept up faster than the state's ability to keep up. One Oregon resident said, "Everyone told me about Oregon's nature, and it was heaven. They forgot to mention the mold. My pronouns are permanently soggy now." 12.4% of new residents to Oregon regret moving there. Number 6. California. California sells itself as the land of opportunity. What they don't mention is the opportunity you get to pay $3,000 for a studio apartment the size of a parking space. Taxes towering. Housing laughable. Gas prices spirit-crushing. Add in wildfires, water shortage, earthquakes, and commutes that last longer than some marriages, and the dream starts to fade fast. Many new residents discover that the state is stunning, but so is the bill for everything. You want avocado toast? Congratulations, you just depleted your bank account. You want to park your car? That'll be 2 organs and a signed apology. The constant cycle of natural disasters adds its own fun. Every newcomer has a moment where they realize the sky being orange isn't a filter. Now, we've been talking about the real estate prices in California for years. Matter of fact, anytime anyone brings up California, that's one of the first things they talk about is the real estate prices. Just recently, they've been trying to pass, I don't know if they're passed already, but new laws making it easier to build homes so they could help with the housing shortage, and maybe that will lower the prices. And everyone keeps bringing that up like it's a great thing. It is, but the people won't realize its benefits for 5 to 10 years. So great, bravo, moving in the right direction, but it's going to take some time. And that's if someone doesn't step in and screw it all up between now and the next 10 years. One resident summed it up perfectly. "I moved here for the weather." Turns out half the year the weather wants to kill you, and the other half you can't afford to enjoy. 12.7% of new residents California regret moving to the Golden State. Number 5. Louisiana. Louisiana has a great reputation for music, food, and celebration. Living here, however, is a bit like being in a relationship with someone who's fun but wildly unpredictable. Humidity is brutal, the bugs are relentless, and the storm season feels like nature rolling dice to see which town gets obliterated this year. The infrastructure is rough. The jobs can be hit or miss. Crime rates are high in many of the metros, pretty much all the metros, and property insurance is skyrocketing here as well, especially near the coast where the hurricanes hit the most. Many newcomers find the cost of staying here long-term exceeds whatever charm brought them in. Romanticism fades and the mildew begins. I've been to Louisiana. I don't know, a few times over the last 5 or 6 years. Prior to that, I hadn't been since probably the early 90s. It was such a nice place to be back in the 90s. It wasn't perfect. They had some crime. The weather's always been the weather. But when I've gone the last few years, it just seems like New Orleans. I've been to Shreveport, been to a couple other places. They just feel like they're falling apart. Like sometime during the 90s, they got a bunch of money for infrastructure, and then that was it. They haven't done anything since then. One resident said, "I love the food, but I can't enjoy it when my house insurance costs more than my mortgage. My walls have mold. My wallet has trauma." 13.2% of new Louisiana residents regret moving there. If you've made it this far, make sure you stay for number 3 and number 1 because they will surprise you. I promise. Number 4, Mississippi. Mississippi pulls people in with cheap housing and low costs, but reality hits quickly. The economy is sluggish. Wages lag behind the rest of the country, and the job market in many areas feels like they're still waiting for the Industrial Revolution to kick in. Education, healthcare, and infrastructure routinely rank near the bottom nationally. It's weird that you got to be a certain type of tough to move to Alaska, maybe Montana, Wyoming, those frontier-type states. Mississippi is very similar, but you just have to be a resilient person to live here. I've always thought it's a great place to move to if you're trying to avoid a stalker because, even stalkers draw the line someplace. Many new residents discover that while they can buy a house for the price of a used sedan, actually building a stable, life is much harder. Roads crumble, hospitals close, and rural areas often feel forgotten by time. Sometimes charming, mostly frustrating. It's the kind of place where people say, "I moved here for the affordability, but never, I stayed for the opportunity." There's a stat that a lot of these companies go by, and one of them is opportunity. Mississippi is always ranked last place for opportunity. One resident said, "My house is cheap. Everything else, jobs, healthcare, hope, way too expensive." I had a guy email me about a year ago. "I don't like the way you make us sound in Mississippi, like we're a bunch of overall-wearing toothless hicks." 13.2%, 2% of new Mississippi residents regret moving to the Magnolia State. Number 3, Hawaii. Yep, I'm sure you're surprised. I was too when I saw the percentage. Hawaii is the ultimate dream move until the bills arrive. The islands are stunning, the beaches are incredible, and the sunsets are life-changing. New residents often experience the grocery store and immediately regret moving to paradise. Milk costs more than mood stabilizers. Housing prices are intergalactic, and unless you work in tourism, government, or remote tech, your job options are slim. The isolation hits hard. Everything requires shipping. Flights to the mainland cost a small fortune, and even Amazon Prime takes its sweet time. Add in heavy traffic, limited space, and high taxes, and paradise becomes a paradise-shaped trap. 13.8% of new residents to Hawaii regret moving there. Number 2, New York. New York is electric, exciting, and absolutely exhausting. Newcomers arrive ready to chase their dreams, but quickly discover they can't afford a subway ride to those dreams. Housing costs are absurd. Anything under $2,500 a month practically counts as a blessing and probably comes with roommates, mice, or both. Now, that's just in New York City. The rest of the state is pretty expensive too. Taxes are absolutely brutal. Utilities are sky high. Winter smacks residents with the kind of cold that makes you curse at the weatherman while drinking your morning coffee. Traffic is chaos. Upstate jobs can be scarce. And many newcomers burn out from the pace of life alone. Even the food trucks cost more than a sit-down restaurant in most states. I went to a Mexican food place. It was kinda cool. You had to take an elevator up to it, and it was on a roof. I thought that was cool in Hell's Kitchen, but 2 drinks and 4 tacos later, it was like $150, not counting tip. And it just wasn't that restaurant. Almost everywhere we ate that week was brutal. And we were in Hell's Kitchen, which is considered one of the cheaper parts of New York City. One resident said, "I wanted to be part of the fast-paced, affordable lifestyle. Turns out the only thing moving fast was my money straight out of my wallet." 13.8% of new residents regret moving to New York. All right, Before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about moving to a new state, there's a link for a website called Home and Money in the description area. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Texas. Texas has become the poster child for movers' remorse. People flock here for the promise of cheap houses, freedom, jobs, and wide-open spaces. Then they meet the reality. Sky-high property taxes, scorching summers, choking traffic, rising insurance premiums, and infrastructure that collapses faster than my excuses for not doing my homework in the 6th grade. When the weather turns dramatic, heat is its own villain. Triple-digit temperatures stretch on for months, turning daily life into survival challenges. Water shortages, rapid growth, crime spikes in some metros, and political whiplash also contribute to the regret. And yes, those were cheap houses. Not so cheap anymore. Housing prices and rent have climbed like they're training for the Olympics. I know a few people that have moved to Texas. One loves it. Amazing. Moved from Southern California to Texas probably about 10 years ago. She loves it. I know a couple other ones that moved there within the last 5 years. They are now looking at Nevada. Nevada's got its own set of situations, but people don't regret it as much. One resident said, "I came for the low-cost living. Now I have higher taxes, higher insurance, and heat that melts my motivation to do anything." 14.4% of new residents to Texas regret moving there. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed.